morning, or actually afternoon, depending on where you are, everyone. Welcome to another week of the Roundtable with your host, Katrina J.
Madam Ash.
And Minister Trav is somewhere in the abyss of this virtual world. We're trying out something new this week, but we're certainly glad to be back with you. Glad to have you connected with us. And certainly going to jump into our topics for today, as so much has been happening across the country. I think every person imaginable. This is probably the first time in the history of the world, or I'll say one of the first time or more recent times, that we've all been connected to the same thing, whether it's a mass pandemic, whether it's a situation that just took on a life of its own via the media, like 9/11, or something to that nature. But we've all been faced or all have been impacted on some level by COVID-19. Today, we have a wonderful guest with us, Marc Polite. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes,
Marc?
That's correct. Yes, polite
Okay.
like the word, yes.
Marc Polite, he's an award-winning writer from New York City, which is where the show is broadcasting out of. He writes on issues concerning history, labor, technology. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's in history from the City College of New York. Mr. Polite has also published 3 books called The Poetic Ruminations of Mr. Born Nice, a collection of original poems, Everything to Learn, Nothing to Teach, a collection of essays, commentary, and personal recollections, Poetic Ruminations, Volume 2, a collection of original poems and follow-up to the first Poetic Ruminations. All 3 books are available in print and on Kindle, and he has written a fantastic article that is in the New York Amsterdam News. The issue from April 9th, 2020 through April 15th. It is on page 8 for those of you who do get the Amsterdam News in the area, at the top of page 8, and it's titled Coronavirus Crisis, New York City Impact Will Be Lasting. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Welcome, Marc Polite. We don't have our text, so I'll clap it up.
Right. We'll be our own sound effects.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. I truly appreciate it.
You are welcome. You are so welcome. Well, let's just jump right in. You wrote the article, Coronavirus Crisis, New York City Impact Will Be Lasting. What sparked your interest in writing this article?
Well, what sparked my interest in writing this article was just seeing the progression of this virus happen to New York within the past 3 weeks. I just saw all these things going on around me. I saw things shutting down, and I just saw the level of chaos that I've started to witness around me. Like, of course, things happen in waves. The schools closed first, and then certain things that started to get shut down, and I just started to really witness and really think about what's going to happen after all this is over. And it's just kind of disconcerting, because once I found out that New York is the epicenter of it, for the entire country, that changes the whole perspective, and it just became necessary to just look at, well, what's going to be the long-term impact of this. And I wanted to start a conversation that I did not see going on anywhere else, and that's what motivated me to write this article, because I just didn't. This was all before all of the racial data started to come out about how this coronavirus is disproportionately affecting our people, and it just seeing that come out after the fact. This was before the article came out and everything, but just seeing how things played itself out, it just needed to be addressed, in my opinion.
I have a question. You opened up the article talking about how it was first to be believed as a virus for elders. I also saw all of us on social media, everyone was joking about how Black people can't get melanin. So it took a while for us to take it seriously. And now we're the most disproportionately impacted by it. But that's not a secret. We're all the most disproportionately impacted by everything. And so is the disenfranchised community, not just Black people, Black and brown, poor. So I wanted to understand what do you feel about that? What do you feel about Black people not taking it seriously at first, and now we're dying by the road?
Well, the thing about it is that it's like one of those conundrums, because I can't be completely all the way upset with Black people for not taking this initially seriously, because at the beginning, people were making comparisons to the flu and saying that, oh well, more people die of the flu of each each year. And we heard this from not within our community. We heard this from people on television, right?
Right.
We heard this from Dr. Drew and other sources saying, well, this is not going to be that bad. Oh, the CDC they said to us, well, oh no, you don't need to wear no mask. Masks don't protect you. And then come to find out that lo and behold, 3 weeks into this thing, 3.5 weeks into this thing, that it comes to find out, oh, yeah, we do need masks. So there was so many lies that were spread about this thing that at the inception, that if authorities had been upfront with us, could have potentially saved more lives. So I'm not going to lay that, like me personally, I'm not going to lay that at the feet of Black people, because it's the responsibility of government and people in positions of authority to make moves. I referred to it. I hinted at it in the article, in the piece, where I said there were people who sold stocks instead of warning the general public. And some people knew since January that this was going to be an issue, and then instead of doing the due diligence to warn the public, they decided to dump stocks and enrich themselves. So my thing is, it's disruption affecting us, and now it's here, and we have to deal with it. But going back to December and even January, we have to look at some of the systems that could have been in place that could have saved lives. Like, for example, the schools might have been closed a little bit earlier. De Blasio kind of dragged his feet on the whole thing. And that could have, if the schools had closed maybe in early, like March 1st, that probably would have saved lives too. So, social media is a funny thing. Like, people make jokes about a lot of things, until it actually hits. But I don't lay that at the blame of the general population. I got to look at the leadership, and it's more of their fault as to why it hit so hard.
I agree as far as the coming from the top down. Sorry. But at the end of the day, what about the people that's not taking it serious now? There's still people outside not using any protective gear. They don't respect social distancing. They still think it's a joke. And people are literally dying every day. Some people say that it's a joke. It's not even real. They're saying that people are lying and this is the way to take over or help Trump. There's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories out there. And one of them that you hit in your article was about 5G and the Bible. Kind of talk about that a little, because that whole thing it just came out of nowhere. As far as that whole, I don't know if it's a myth or not, but it's just a lot of conspiracy theories going on online. And I understand what you're saying, that from the top down, I agree. But at this point, we're all suffering right now. People are not taking it seriously. It's mostly our community and young people playing outside. If you go to Harlem, I still have to go to work on the train. I take the train. You still see people on the buses, in the back of the buses, all packed together. So it's issues from the top as far as the government, but also issues amongst us socially that we're not living. So I wanted you to talk about how do you think we could make more people take it seriously, and talk about the 5G virus that's in your article.
Well, I'll start with the first part as far as taking it seriously. I think it's past the point where we can say that this is a joke. I mean, even what I've seen, like going in my necessary travels to make things around and everything, like to just go run for food and medicine. What I've seen this week, I've seen more people taking this. I've seen people wearing masks. I've seen people, following the rules with social distancing. At least parts of Harlem that I've been through. I mean, I can't speak for all parts of Harlem, but there are some people who are not taking it seriously, and that does need to change. But the thing about it is that I just look at it overall. How possible is it? Other things should have been done, like the parks and all the playgrounds should have been closed immediately. If you don't want people to
gather,
break down social distancing,
yeah.
why leave these things open? I mean, and here's the thing, and I'll say this might be controversial, but I'll throw it out there anyway. With so many transit workers dying, why the train still running? That's an open question too. Like 40 right, at this point, what I saw last night, 41 transit workers have succumbed to this thing. So I know the city's still trying to keep things running, keep certain amount of businesses open and everything, but at the expense of the the most vulnerable parts of the workforce. And as we all know, uh, the vast majority of transit workers are Black and brown.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's more that can be done, to protect even the essential workers. Now, secondly, as far as my treatment of the conspiracies around 5G and the coronavirus, my main focal point is really to focus on how this conspiracy theory is unhelpful in the in the current context of us dealing with what we need to deal with.
Right.
Um, like there's a big difference between potential radiation that comes from like a new Wi-Fi communication network being installed, and in a virus. Radiation is has to deal with causing cancer, not a respiratory infection. So I don't know scientifically. I don't know how one makes the connection between 5G and coronavirus. Is
Mm-hmm.
really nonsensical. But people. That's the thing. In times of crisis, people propagate theories that don't necessarily help, but just kind of choose to kind of muddy the waters. And at this time, when we've lost thousands of people in the city alone, I just don't see how a conversation about 5G is anything but a distraction. Anything is less than helpful at this point, because it doesn't deal with the issue of overflowing hospitals. It
Right.
doesn't deal with the issue of the people in Harlem Hospital having enough PPE to keep the people safe as they treat the coronavirus patients. None of that does anything to deal with the situation, but make people feel smart on the internet by pointing out non sequiturs, things that don't follow from one another. So I just saw it as kind of you know a pointless distraction, and it's borderline anti-science. And I just needed to deal with that part of it in the piece.
I like that part. Travis, do you
Yeah.
have a question?
Oh, say it again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We have another host. I think he joined us.
Yeah, I wanted to know, Mark, from you, how do we do? I wanted to know how do we? Yeah, I wanted to know, how do we deal with this crisis in regards to the African American community, and how our numbers in regards to this coronavirus is going. Could you add to that, and how does that definitely directly affect us in so many ways?
Yeah. I would say like set up more testing sites and facilities in our neighborhoods. Um, like do what we can to discourage people from congregating, whether it be church or in the parks or whatever, and just let people know like what they can do to protect themselves and how serious this is, because so many people have passed from this, even people who are healthy and have no pre-existing conditions. That some people have succumbed to this thing, and that's a conversation that needs to be had. We're here dealing with the aftermath of this, and you know it's kind of sad that when you really look at it, the fact of the matter is, when we talk about hospitals and they turn away people from the hospitals, and some of the some of the urgent cares and the smaller clinics are saying they don't treat COVID-19 patients. So a lot of us are forced to fight it out at home and ride it out as much as possible, and and pray to God and hope our immune systems are strong enough to fight this thing. But that's not a solution. That like Home Hospital needs respirators. There might even need to be you know like field hospitals set up in in neighborhoods and everything. So Yeah, I think it will take something on that level to prevent, to prevent more people from passing as this thing, because this thing still hasn't apexed yet. I mean, last figure I saw was 799 people passed I think it was Tuesday, I believe. So we're not necessarily out of the woods yet. I've seen some figures from Cuomo saying the hospitalization rates have fallen, but that doesn't take into account all the people who have been turned away from hospitals. So,
Right, and that
yeah,
are suffering at home,
yeah,
Right, because
or the ones that can't
I've
get into the hospital
seen
because they
and
don't
even
have
witnessed.
adequate care.
Right.
Right.
exactly.
But then there's also individuals too that have gone to the hospital, have had some of the symptoms, but not have had all of the symptoms. And so individuals might be infected with not all of these symptoms, but they're still being turned away, which in essence, we really won't really understand or know the actual numbers for how many people have contracted this virus, especially in our community as well too.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it, because they're like the even the counts are behind the curve, because they're not tallying up the people who've succumbed at home and everything, and it's just like it's just a horrible situation knowing that so many like New York City residents are in a situation that they are unable to get help because there's so many people who need help. Like, as far as from what I've heard and seen, uh, where I'm at, I experience and hear sirens, ambulance sirens going all times of day and all times of night. And when you hear that, it's critical. So, our city services are overwhelmed, and that's why in the piece I talked about the need to bolster the healthcare system and looking back on it, maybe it wasn't a good idea to close so many hospitals. From what used to be North General Hospital in Harlem to
Hmm.
Long Island College Hospital. It just wasn't a good idea to just gut our you know our healthcare infrastructure, and we're unfortunately paying the price for that now.
Agreed. I think to one of your points, which is why, because there's so many unknowns with the virus, and in an effort to ease some of the pressure put on the healthcare system, is reasons why we have to, and I say we collectively as a people, have to adhere to the guidelines or the restrictions placed by the state, the federal, and of course by the CDC to restrict your activity to staying to doing what is essential, to not congregating in parks. I think a great step would be for the authorities to start policing those areas and shutting down large gatherings. I happen to live on the west side of Manhattan, on Riverside, directly across from Riverbank State Park, and I can't tell you how many days this week I've come home and heard music blasting, not coming from somebody curbside, but coming from the waterfront, which has a barbecue area, park, it's beautiful in the spring and summer. Park area right on the Hudson, where people are out there barbecuing and grilling, and clearly no social distancing is being practiced. And that just continues and continues and continues. So I think if there was a way for the authorities to start policing some of those areas and breaking those crowds up, similar to what they believe they started doing in certain parts of Brooklyn, at events where they've been notified of, that will hopefully alleviate some of what we're seeing on a day-to-day. And then of course they're making sure that the information that we're communicating or that we're sharing is actually valid information, and information that's going to help educate people. And sometimes it may be us doing it, because we know things in the media can take a life of its own, whether it's right or whether it's misinformation.
But in what Katrina said, you also you underline a double-edged sword. Yes, because like you said, on the train, people are congregating the rules, so we need more police there. But that also calls for over-policing. That causes the issues in our community with
Correct.
become more arrested for petty crimes, and that issue rising and
Right.
aligning. But that what about, he talked about issues with this coronavirus, with this health public health issue, how it undermines basically all the double-edged sword. We need certain things, but basically it might also harm certain things in our community. So it's a situation that we have to face, but we also come up. But how we come out of this, how will it look like when this ends? How will it look like when it's time to go outside? Everybody keeps posting me like, "Oh, I can't wait to get outside." But will it be safe for us to go outside? Because all these places that's closed down, how will they be cleaned? How long will it take for them to get how long will it take for them to get the resources for them to be safe for the public to open? So how will that look? I don't really hear people talking about how like Trump and all the Cuomo and everyone else how it will look in New York City, especially since we're the epicenter.
I agree.
How will it look?
I agree.
And do you have any idea, Brother Polite?
Well, I will say firstly, I agree with you, both you, Katrina and Ashley, about the issue of people congregating socially, and how that has to be handled carefully. Like authorities should direct people that you should not congregate just for your own safety and the health and safety of everybody around you. It's not just necessarily about you, about how you feel, about how you want to individually escape some of the the mayhem that's happening by still wanting to see your people and everything. We get that, but we still need to make everybody safe. And to answer your point, actually, we really don't want to the police to give them a carte blanche to just start just wilding on people, so that there's that element of it. Now, as far as like when things are going to be safe to go back, like that's a great question. We're not even at the apex of this thing yet, and we're still in the hundreds of deaths as far as we're concerned. And from what I can see, there's no telling about the status of a vaccine, at this point. So now I don't know, like from what I've heard, the authorities here in New York City have said that the pause on the state is going to last at least until the end of May. And from what I've heard from the CDC, they've said that, and this is what they're expecting. They're expecting that the virus cannot live within a certain amount of it can't stand certain temperatures, higher temperatures.
Right.
So the hope is, kind of explicitly that once the late spring, early summer comes in, that heat alone will kill the virus. But there's no guarantee of this. There's no certainty of that. And even with that being said, will it be safe to return to work for vast majority of people? And that needs to be kind of looked at, to as far as like labor issues, like is it safe for workers to go back to work? At that point, it becomes an OSHA issue. At that point, it becomes the issue of like the labor department say, okay, are you going to put a certain amount of people in harm's way just to get the motor of the economy running? And that's the next set of concerns that for all the people in New York City, that once the worst of it is passed, and if there's still hundreds of people dying every day, how are we going to have to respond to that? Are we going to be forced to put our bodies and our families' bodies on the line to get back to work to make money for other people? So that's a big question that will kind of be answered in an affirmative when people start going in motion. So it's not something that you can predict. There's no telling if even by June this is going to break, or if people still see people hospitalized and don't feel safe going back to work, and they just say, you know what, I'm using my time, or you know what, I'm not coming back in until all the buildings are clean and everything. And that's going to be a call for I would say your union lawyers and OSHA and all the state organizations that we have that do with health and safety for workers. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be looked at.
And I would imagine
I'm
it'd be a
wondering.
rollout. It would be a rollout and of opening, not just a, May 31st, all businesses can go back to business as usual. I would imagine that they would, take the time to actually think through how are they going to respond as businesses begin opening, as some sense of normalcy returns for, the millions of New Yorkers who were impacted by it, before just pulling the trigger and saying go.
I'm wondering more so because of all the confusion that has happened, all of the misled information. I'm wondering, will they even give individuals the opportunity to clean their facilities, or
they have to.
Well, they've opened.
I
They're able to now. You have plenty of time to clean and all that. I'm sure there'll be some kind of governmental mandate. Just like the same way they do with when they rate different restaurants and stores and things of that nature. There will be something issued the same way that they issued with best practices to avoid corona, washing your hands and wearing gloves and wearing the face mask and using hand sanitizer and those sorts of things. At least I would imagine. Now, thank goodness we have a leadership now who has done a fairly decent job with keeping us informed, and via Governor Cuomo, and making sure that we're aware of the newest regulations or newest guidelines or newest restrictions. And I'm hopeful that something will roll out from his offices regarding that as well.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Polite?
Well, no, I think that, about covers it. We're still in the thick of it. We're New York City is not out of the woods yet.
Right.
And, me personally, I'm abiding by the rules of social distancing, and I'm only going out at the maximum, once a week, just to get everything in one shot, and limiting my contact with people and everything as much as possible, and just having the whole mask on thing and everything. So and that's all one can do individually. So and until this passes, it's just kind of like a plague. So that's what I can do until things subside, and I'm just hope and pray for hope and pray for people to make it through, and then to be an aid and comfort to people who are struggling and people who are grieving right now, and mourning the loss of their family members at this time. So all we can do right now is just continue to be there for one another as much as possible. So yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Spreading the information that we know about, and hopefully this will be our last interview.
Okay. All right. So
Thank you again, Mark.
So much. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really truly appreciate the invite. Really do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we'll see you again
accepting.
soon.
Oh, okay then. All right. Y'all take care now.
You
All right.
too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All righty.
So Katrina,
Yeah.
you're heading up at the House of Justice, the National Network House of Justice.
Yes.
Up in 50 Linux in Harlem. For those
Yes.
of you, National Network is a civil rights organization, a leading civil rights organization, founded by Reverend Al Sharpton, and Katrina is liaison to Reverend Al Sharpton.
Yes, to me is.
For the last 3 weeks with World Central Kitchen, we've had a partnership giving out food, hot and cold meals, and it can go more into depth because she's literally running and coordinating it. She's been on the ground helping to lead this initiative in New York City and Jersey. So I want you to talk about exactly what you've been doing, how you've been doing it, how this is impacting the community and helping the community. Because some people feel like, and I've seen it because I do West Social, they're like, oh, this is y'all just want attention and all that. But at the end of the day, half of what they see is not even a quarter or even a tenth of. So could you please break down what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. Okay, so Monday through Saturday here at the House of Justice, which is located in Harlem, 106 West 145th, at the corner of Lenox Avenue. We distribute meals from noon. We say until 4 p.m., but really it's until supplies last, to hundreds of Harlemites and those that reside in the Bronx, because we're right near the distribution side is right near a BX19 stop. And so we have an influx of people coming from the Bronx as well to receive food. And even as far as Brooklyn, at the beginning of this week, we had quite a few people coming from Brooklyn who heard about it on Rev's radio show that we were distributing food, and they got on the train to come up here because they're at home suffering. There's a lot of food banks, there's a lot of pantries, there's a lot of churches that are closed and that are no longer serving. And so each and every day we distribute about 2,000 meals, sometimes more. And as you indicated, Ashley, it does include a prepackaged cold option, which would be a salad, sandwich, or wrap, and then an option that they can heat in the microwave or in the oven if they don't have a microwave for roughly 2 to 3 minutes, all prepared with the best ingredients. We've done taste testing. The food is really, really good. And so we have a team of volunteers here, a small team because we do want to adhere to social distancing here that comes every day, Monday through Saturday. We get in at about between 10:30 and 11. The truck arrives, we receive our shipment, we package it first in bags. We just started doing this week, which has worked phenomenally and has allowed us to decrease the person-to-person contact. We pre-package it in boxes or bags, and then as each person comes up and requests a certain number of meals, we bring the box out and set it on the table, and they pick it up. So it's kind of like a drive-through option. We've decreased our contact with the general public. We're all wearing gloves, masks. Mine is actually right here because I just took it off before we came on to do this.
Oh, no.
Let me swipe back there to do this interview. To do this podcast recording, but it's been phenomenal. The people are grateful. They are here. They come, literally start lining up around 10:30 in the morning because they know that we're here. And to be able to take that stand, to put our lives on the line, so to speak, is a tremendous blessing. Because where else would I be? I'd be at home, probably doing nothing, the same thing that everyone else is doing. And I'm not saying this is for everybody in this kind of service, but everything that I do exists from the space of service and giving back. And so when the opportunity presented itself, of course, I said yes. And it's been a blast since day one. We probably to date have distributed over 20,000 meals, and we're certainly increasing. We'll probably increase, by 1,000 meals, going up to say 3,000 meals a day by the end of next week, because the demand is there and the people are coming out and they're adhering to 6 feet distance.
Wow.
We have markers on the ground outside of the building. We're following all the protocols that we possibly can, but really being of service to this community who needs it to survive. They really do.
Katrina, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
I'm wondering, what is the momentum of the people there? So when they're there, does it seem like they're somber? Are they sad? Are people happy? What
You mean the
like?
people coming in? Well, one first of all, this is a faith-based.
The people coming in, yeah.
Right. So we're a faith-based organization. Right. I start every day with prayer, and before we even distribute, whether the volunteer believes in prayer or not is not really my question. But just to set the atmosphere, I believe in the power of prayer. So I pray every day before we even begin distributing, right? And then we make sure that whoever's on the front line, that it's not like we went through a training per se, but I did give them best practices, making sure that they're smiling even behind the mask, that they greet each person with a hello, how are you today? That we're not rushing them through as if it were some mass production line, that we don't put limits on the number of meals that they request or that they can receive, because you don't know, there's people coming feeding 6 to 8 to 10 people and they're hungry. We don't know when their next meal may be. And for some people, this is their first meal of the day. We've had hundreds of people come and say, thank you guys so much for being here every day. This is the first time I'm eating today. People with families with children, they're coming out as well, who were already in a dire situation pre-corona. And now, because their resources have been cut back or limited, they're not able to receive, but they're able to receive now because National Action Network has taken a stance and partnered with World Central Kitchen to establish this distribution site in the community for as long as we need to. Yesterday, Chef Andres, who's the chef that kind of the visionary behind it all, stopped by the House of Justice and did some video recording on his phone or what have you, talking about the partnership with National Action Network and thanking Reverend Sharpton and thanking the team of volunteers for being committed to giving back and for standing in the space of service when so many are not able to. And of course, there's people out here that are concerned, you know, that are, I don't like to use the word fear, but there's concern because we don't know how the disease is spreading. But the reality is, I mean, this is just for me personally, I just don't believe faith and fear can exist in the same space. And I know that's a cliche to some, and I know we've seen that as a meme. It doesn't even occur to me to be afraid or to be concerned, because I've done everything that I possibly can, both externally in terms of protecting myself, but also internally in terms of the vitamins, the foods, the supplements that I take each day, sometimes twice a day, to ensure that my system is able to perform as optimally as it can.
Well, I wanted to shout you out and salute you and your team. What's the name, of course, Kitchen and Robertson. But I just feel like people are always talking about the essential workers, and yes, the medical staff, all the nurses, doctors, everybody on the ambulance, everybody on deck, those in the the elderly, everyone that is essential on the news, fire workers, all that, are being applauded. But those on the ground who risk their lives every day to help somebody else, to serve their, regardless of what's going on, y'all don't have to do that. You're risking your lives to go help someone else, to feed someone else, and it's not something that should be taken for granted, because people are starving outside. Like, people don't understand, maybe personal families are not impacted that you may see. People lost their income and their jobs, and they have no way to feed their families and stuff. For some people, that's their only option to eat, is going on a food bank line, or going to the House of Justice and getting a meal, or going to World Central Kitchen location somewhere else and get. So I salute you guys, because it needs to be known, and you guys are local heroes, like everyday local.
Thank
heroes.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But also, at the end of the day, some people are not getting help at all. And I want to just touch, I don't have a lot of time, but I know recently, since Dr. Fauci talked about it from the House in his presser, they've been talking about the disproportionate ways that it's impacting the Black and brown community. But people have been talking about this since it started, since this happened. I know Red, one of the people, Van Jones has been one of the people, even Angela Wright, talking about how this will impact our community, because it always has. This is not something new. Yes, this is the first time we've seen a pandemic in our lifetime, but this is not new that something is impacting the world, and Black and brown people are the brunt of it, because we are not protected, because we do not have access to care. That's a problem. Because we do not have access to clean food and clean water on a regular. How many have been going on?
There's statistics. Yeah, it's been. They still got dirty water.
This is crazy.
Still to this day.
Right. But they're still going through this. It breaks my heart. And I know what you said, Katrina. You said faith and fear do not go in the same place. That reminds me of something Patrice says. But I must counter that, because I know it shouldn't. Maybe my faith should be greater, but I feel like my faith is great. But I still get afraid.
Of course.
To go to work, or the 3 to 5 days we have to go to work in, and it's petrifying. Sometimes you see the homeless; they have sores all over their body, and they come to you asking you for something, and you can't say social distancing. They don't care about that. And it's like this last week I saw somebody, and I started crying, because I was just like, why is she outside? Like, why? She has nowhere else to go. Like, all you can do is school. And who's supposed to care about her? Like, so it's a problem. Like, it's really the homeless and incarcerated are being impacted. And yes, everybody is being impacted by this. Every single person on the globe is being impacted by this virus. But at the end of the day, the people that have nothing already, who had nothing to start with, what happens to them? Like, this is really crazy. And people are out here talking about this is a hoax, and people are trying to get Trump elected. If that's so, how are you going to help those who are being impacted by this, regardless of who is in office right now?
Right.
You know, I think a major, and I agree with you, Ashley. No one has been looking at the idea of. I'm not going to say anyone, but there are a few people who have been looking at the idea of those who are homeless, or those who are disenfranchised, those individuals who are less than, that don't have as much resources as others do. It's funny you say this, because on my prayer line on Mondays, this past Monday, I prayed for the homeless. I prayed for those incarcerated, but I also prayed for those who were still on the borders, who were still in those detention centers, who might be impacted, by this virus. And nothing is being done. And although I'm in South Carolina, I still get the news. I still get feedback from friends and family members, and it's still a terror, just about. And if it's not physically, harming your health, mentally, to everybody just about. It's messing up a lot of people, you know, because people are scared, you know. And we could talk about faith and talk about fear. The reality is, I believe that your faith should drive your fear. I'm sorry, your fear should drive your faith to be sustained, you know, in what you believe and who you know. You know, there
as much as possible.
Minister, I get nervous. Yeah. I mean, it's part of human nature, you know. So it's okay to be scared, you know, or be fearful in this moment. But it's just a constant reminder in yourself saying, "Hey, I'm going to be all right," you know. But I do want to talk about the idea, or think about more so those who are deeply impacted, right? And what does that look like for them? You know, where do they go from here? How do we help those individuals? You know, the House of Justice is a large entity, but you know, serving this our community. But there's so many other churches,
right?
There's so many other synagogues that should be helping, that should be doing. You know, we're not asking for 40, 50 people to help. We're asking for 5, 6 people to help. You know, I'm wondering why do you all think that people are not moving in this manner?
Because the reality of it is that there's
in assisting.
There's some that are suffering just to stay. They're trying their best to stay open. When we talk about the faith-based organizations, the churches, synagogues, or whomever, they are not even allowed to congregate. And as you know, a lot of ministries they depend on their Sunday offering or their weekly offering in order to have funds to be able to do programming on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. And they're no longer able to do so because they've had to shut the doors and because of the various restrictions that have been made. I don't know that there are people that can and aren't, unless they just don't want to, right? I feel like everyone has been impacted, and those who, we're grateful for the ones who
I'll say this,
who can and are doing it, and those that, you know, maybe they're a little bit more concerned, or they have a little bit more at risk, or whatever their reasons are that they're not doing. I think the danger is having too much, and we go back to the crowding and the lack of social distancing, which of course causes the disease to spread even more.
But I think it goes to both of you just say. I think it's economics factor, and I think it is fear. It's the fear of the unknown. No, people have not been in this situation before. So you, first of all, like you just said, you don't have your income, you don't have your Sunday, you don't get your offering,
your weekly, whatever
you do during the week, or shut down. So that there's a panic around the economic impact of this virus. It's people are saying it's going to lead to the Great Depression. I don't want to cause theories. I don't want to give any fake news out there, but I'm just saying what I've heard. And the people's jobs, everybody, the unemployment line is like ridiculous right now. So at the end of the day, you have that part with economic, but you also have the fear of you don't know when this will end. You have people who had things scheduled, their annual fundraisers have been postponed or have to be canceled. So how will you like you said? And then you also have people like Johnny Green who had over 9 people dying in his congregation.
Every week is somebody else
dealing with the whole your whole congregation is leaving. You can't even have funerals to bury them. You can't even give the proper condolences or consolation to people who need to feel it. So this time it's up in the air, and the fact that I think Brother Polite said that if the government is not leading, that's a problem at this time. There should be some kind of aid or something given to churches or given to certain people who can help, because they need help. And at the top down, it has to start from the top down. And the government knew about it. President Trump knew about it, or Trump, excuse me, I don't address him as our president, but he knew about it, and that could have helped to make this better. This is not the first time that it's the first time it was badly handled, and it's a trickle-down effect. And that is the problem that we're all experiencing, is a trickle-down effect, that the lack of leadership from the top did not do anything. Now we're all in a state of disarray.
We're scrambling. People are scrambling. And thank goodness we live in a state where we have leadership from the government, from the governor, at least in terms of communication. Because I feel like when the communication is properly managed, the people will slowly but surely follow that line of communication. It's when it's not properly managed that you've got everybody running all over the place and scattering like roaches, because they don't really not know what to do. And fear is a very real feeling. And it's like it literally like stuns people.
Right. But I do feel during this time, like Travis said, the prayer line on Monday, there is something that you can do virtually. There are things that you can do to help to pastor your flock. There's things that you can do to help lead whoever followed you during this time. So I salute those who are doing that, who are having the weekly prayer meetings, who Holy Week, who are doing things online and trying to lead people up for change at the end of the day. But I also feel like you can't forget about the important issues that happened before this virus. Don't forget the census. Don't forget the election.
Please not. No.
I'm not going to vote. I'm not doing that. There's a major push for inline voting right now. Right. We all need to be supporting that, because if you just saw the primary that just happened, what was it, in Vermont or
Vermont? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Vermont, but or Wisconsin, something like that. But basically, it was a travesty. Basically, they had people online, so trying to social distance. It was ridiculous. People who were basically very, very sick had to come and cast their ballot, and it was
in person.
In-person voting should not be happening if there's a virus that people can get if they're close to each other. That doesn't even make sense. So they need to push voting. We need to be pushing that legislation across and supporting that by the masses as America, so that we can vote in a that's quickly approaching. And they don't need to try to push it or throw it away, because at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders, we just saw him drop. Shouts to Bernie Sanders and his team. Half of your issues, or not, matter of fact, all your issues are being pushed forward as we see at this time. You were right about healthcare for all. If everyone had healthcare for all, we wouldn't be in this situation, because it would be easier to get help.
People wouldn't be afraid to go to the hospital.
And also minimum wage, the general minimum wage. I mean, at the end of the day, people that have to go to work at this time should not be making $15 an hour, risking their lives. That's crazy. Then also the last he was talking about, the housing, all of the issues that he was talking about, Bernie was talking about, are being underlined right now. He was talking for the disenfranchised community. Now that those issues are on the table, Biden needs to make sure that those issues are on his agenda, and make sure that he has answers to them, or ways that he makes sure that we are guaranteed that this can happen, or has a plan. Right. I'm sorry, I'm saying that I think we need to vote Biden in. Trump, good day. We saw what you did. You got your 4 years in it.
That's it.
But I also think,
come on.
I also think too, Ash, and I agree with you. I think when we do vote him in, we have to hold him accountable.
That's anybody. Hold him accountable as much as possible. We have to
hold him accountable, because I think even more so, we voted Obama in, but didn't really put our hands to the plow in working with him and making sure the things that we needed to get done in our community were done the way they should have been done. And so, although a lot of progress was made with Barack, I think a lot more could have been made.
He had more opposition. So it's different with Trump, but that's a whole different conversation.
No, most definitely. But I think with Biden, we have to hold him accountable. Because we're out of options at this point. So
we should be holding more than Biden, your local elected officials as well, because especially since you mentioned that census, the local officials are the ones who manage the funds that the state receives, that gets dispersed to the various communities. So first of all, I have to put a button in it, because I need to go and to distribute meals. But I will say that I would love to at our next one to break down the census, why it's important, and how it directly relates to each of our communities, and how to hold not only to complete your form, but also to stress the factor of holding the electeds accountable, because they handle the money and manage the money that each individual community receives. And we're seeing the effects of improper documentation, I'll say right now, because the resources aren't there, and they're not. Part of the reason they're not there is because they don't know how many people actually reside in one particular area due to the census numbers. And so that's just my.
I know you have to wait. I know it's Good Friday. It's Holy Week. You gotta pray us out. Gotta pray us
on.
Sure.
Come on, Rev. Pray us out on this Good Friday.
Come on, take
you
the
put music on?
Brother.
Let's pray.
Your headphones aren't working.
So much for life, health, and strength. God, we thank you for the activity of our limbs, Lord. We thank you just for, can y'all hear me? Let's
sorry, public. This is our first time technically dealing with this.
But let's pray. God, we thank you so much for what our eyes have seen, what our ears have heard, God, what our hearts have felt. God, we thank you for this life. We thank you for love. We thank you for the ability just to give your name all praise, honor, and glory. And so, God, as we enter into this week of Holy Week, God, we want to first remember your son Christ as he was crucified, he's buried, but most of all, he resurrected that we might have the right to the tree of life, which means that we are able to live freely under him. But most of all, God, we thank you for this opportunity that we might be able to share our gifts, our talents, our thoughts, our love, and our concerns with individuals. We pray for those who are still on the front line, those who are serving, those who are using their gifts of community service to be of service to others. We thank you for all that you give them, and we pray, God, that you will protect them, keep them, cover them, and continue to love them. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen, my sister.
Amen. Amen. And thank you,
yes,
everyone,
yes.
to all of you who will watch this on the playback. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Round Table with your host, Katrina J.
Madam Ash.
Reverend Travis.
And we look forward to having you with us next week. Ciao.
Peace.
You're at home.